We obviously need this funding to help activate our schools and get kids back into the schools.
Right now at 5:30, school funding now in jeopardy. New Haven's decision to keep its kids home and go virtual could actually wind up costing the school district.
Millions of dollars are on the line here. Channel 3 New Haven Bureau Chief Matt McFarland is live with the mobile newsroom in New Haven with the very latest on this. Matt.
Well, Aaron and Mark, New Haven's COVID inspection team, they were actually here at Hill House High School earlier today. They were going over the ventilation system, checking it out, making sure they have all the signs, the plexiglass needed around the building to safely reopen later this fall. And here's why that's important, because not having kids back in New Haven schools right now, well, that could end up costing the district a couple $1 million.
There's so much funding that we need to make sure that we've got the right filters in the system, we've got the signage, we've got the PPP to make sure that everyone can come back safely.
And while New Haven works to get its schools ready for a return to in-person learning in November, the decision to start the year remotely could end up costing the district more than $2 million in state funding. Specifically, a second round of COVID funding to help with transportation, and also money set aside by the governor to use at his discretion to help schools operate during the pandemic.
Originally, New Haven was set to receive over $5 million. In some ways, the state is saying, well, if you're not back in school, you don't need to fund these things, but a lot of these things are fixed costs that are going to actually help us get back to school. Like that infrastructure improvement that's vital to keeping our community safe.
New Haven superintendent addressed the issue earlier this week during a Board of Ed meeting.
We're pushing behind the scenes. Everyone knows I'm not a loud person, but I do carry a big stick, and I do the best I can in reaching out to people of influence that I'm familiar with on the state level, and that's what we continue to do.
This comes after Governor Lamont, during his Monday COVID update, specifically mentioned the Elm City, encouraging the district to rethink its decision to go the distance learning route for the first 10 weeks of school.
Very, very few are just distance learning. Come on, New Haven, I think you ought to take a look. You have a very low infection rate, and these kids have a chance, ought to have an option to go to school. Obviously, nothing is mandatory.
New Haven Mayor Justin ELICKER says the governor reached out to him, asking what the state can do to help get New Haven back in school.
In many conversations I've had at the state level, the people are not interested in using funding as leverage to force us to do something. We're all interested in getting kids back into school in a safe way.
Now, some students here in New Haven will actually be heading back into the classroom soon. That's because just this week, the Board of Ed decided to bring back roughly 125 students with special needs into 11 schools. So that will be happening shortly. We're live with the mobile newsroom in New Haven. Matt McFarland, Channel 3 Eyewitness News.